Myles Garrett is becoming the defensive version of Joe Thomas for the Cleveland Browns. I made a whole video about this earlier today, but let me explain my point. Joe Thomas spent his entire career with the Cleveland Browns. How many AFC championships did he reach? Zero. How many Super Bowls? Zero. How many Lombardis? Zero. Did he end up, getting his jersey retired or number retired, however you want to say it? Yes. Did he end up getting inducted or enshrined, inducted, whatever word you want to use, into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton? Yes. But, he never got to experience playoff success of any kind. During his entire career, the Browns didn't go to the playoffs once. Now, that's where it's a little bit different for Myles Garrett because the Browns have been to the playoffs 2 times in the last 4 years, I believe it is, if I'm doing the math right.
Yes, with Stefanski, correct.
2020 and 2023. So I get it, but I just don't get. So I understand why there would be criticism of me saying it, but basically they're the same in that. Well, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. It's a little bit of it is like Joe had to deal with more dysfunction, obviously, because of the fact that, he dealt with more head coach than Myles. Myles at least has made the playoffs twice. But I don't understand this move at all from either side's perspective. For Myles Garrett, clearly the statement he said, clearly the fact he went out on Media Row, clearly when he called out Andrew Berry, it was all a lie. It was all about the money. And
it almost seems, not to cut you off, but it almost seems hypocritical in a way.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest with you, from the Browns' perspective, Josh, I've been saying this for weeks. I would have liked, and there's nothing against Myles Garrett. And me and you have both talked about the fact that we don't feel like Myles Garrett, is this all-time great pass rusher that everybody wants to put him up against. And he has notoriously somewhat taking plays off and doesn't play the run. We have both talked about that.
He's a 2-time defensive player of the year, correct?
He is, and the 1 year was legitimate. The other one, I didn't really feel like he earned it. Sometimes I feel like he gets meaningless garbage time sacks to boost his stats. But that's my point is that's what he's going to be doing here in Cleveland because this is also my opinion. I don't think any non-quarterback, even receivers, defensive linemen, as great as they are, I don't think any non-quarterback in the league is worth $40 million a year. And I also think if you're going to pay Myles Garrett $40 million a year, I don't care about the fact that they're talking to Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson and they signed or traded for Kenny Pickett from my Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. They are taking Shedeur Sanders number 2 overall. You're not paying Myles Garrett and then not selecting a quarterback is my takeaway.
The only way I could see them not going Shedeur is if they sign Russell Wilson. And then maybe you go with Travis Hunter at number 2. That's the only way. And on the note of Kirk Cousins, Atlanta's not planning on releasing him. So the only way you're going to get Kirk Cousins as of right now is through trade.
Yeah, can I throw something at you about Travis Hunter? I know this is a Myles Garrett topic, but it's a little bit of a draft topic as well. I think Travis Hunter in the NFL is a defensive back, and in my opinion, defensive backs are not worth top 5 picks.
That's fair.
I don't think, and by the way, for the record, if he's an offensive player, I think he's more of a slot receiver. I don't think he's a dominant number 1, and I don't think that's worth a top 5 pick. So I don't see the value in Travis Hunter like other people do. And I think it would be a waste of a pick. And I also think now, if you're paying Myles Garrett, and as much as I value pass rushers, I think Abdul Carter would be a little bit of a waste of a pick. To me, you would have to take a quarterback now if you're paying Myles Garrett.
So that's where I disagree a little bit with you. Because I look at when Zadarius Smith was paired with Myles Garrett on the opposite side, or when Jadeveon Clowney was on the opposite side of Myles Garrett, Myles was able to be more effective because he could be the Batman, and Clowney or Zadarius was able to be the Robin, in the sense that, like, if Myles got the double team, guess what? That meant
he was. And I agree with you on that. But what I'm saying is, I think you can find those resources and those other defensive linemen in the draft in later rounds and in free agency. They already brought in a defensive tackle. I know who they signed. I'm forgetting his name. I know they got the linebacker too, Joe Chireferon from Tampa Bay. I just think, like, and I understand the point of we could have two dominant pass rushers, but if you really feel like at the number 2 spot you don't want to be here again, and I'm not the biggest Shedeur Sanders fan in the world either, which is why, again, if it was me, I'm trading Myles Garrett for a premium. I'm taking Abdul Carter number 2, and I'm resetting my clock. Paying Myles Garrett $40 million to me means I have to win now. And for the record, I don't think Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson is giving you win now moves either.
No. But the problem is you can't trade Myles Garrett now, because with this new contract extension, there's a no trade clause in
Exactly. And they're not going to trade him, which is, again, why I believe it was a mistake. And for Myles, you mentioned it, it's very hypocritical, Myles Garrett. I mean, I thought when it came out last week that, he requested a meeting with Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam declined and all that stuff came out.
Oh, don't get me started on the Haslams. I will go on a long rant.
So I was floating this out there, Josh. I thought we could have seen a Le'Veon Bell situation where Myles could have just sat out the year and said, and if the Browns were so hell-bent on not trading him, if I'm Myles Garrett, I wouldn't have played for the team. And yet now he gets $40 million a year, and he's just going to be stuck at purgatory, in my opinion.
Yeah, his career is going to wither away, just like Joe Thomas.
At least Myles could say he had more competitive teams than Joe. I will say that for the majority. Obviously, Myles made the playoffs twice. Joe never made the playoffs. So that is something.
Yes, but think about this. Since Myles has been here, we've had, Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, Freddie Kitchens, Kevin Stefanski.
So that's 4 head coaches. Joe went through Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangini, Pat Shurmur, Rod Chadzitsky, Mike Pettin, Hugh Jackson. So that's 6 or 7 head coaches.
I'm just saying, I think the comparison is fair between.
It's fair without a doubt. And again, I think Myles Garrett, money talks. I think it's a stupid decision by him and the organization. Like, I would be fine with paying him $25 million a year. 40 to me is ridiculous. I don't think anybody in the NFL, I don't think Justin Jefferson is worth $40 million a year. I don't think Jalen Carter is worth $40 million a year. I think the only people that are worth $40 million a year are quarterbacks.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's such a weird situation. I don't know what to make of this team for the coming season. I look at their list of opponents. You got the usual AFC North opponents, and then you got the Jets, you got the Patriots, Bills, Dolphins, you got the Titans, you got the 49ers, and then the NFC North.
And some of those teams are going to have good quarterbacks, and we're going to talk different quarterbacks, I should say. Obviously, it sounds like Cam Ward's going to be a Titan. We're going to talk about Justin Fields here in a minute.